Should we get going, actually? I think you've got the cards, and you want to turn them around and check, but I think you've picked out 3 basic themes, so what's the first one?
So the first one was...
Hello. Oh yeah. So the first one was... It's quite a broad one, so it's talking about being away from your family, access, disability, and the funding process. So
that's about everything.
That's about everything, really. But I thought it covered quite a lot of our interests up here. So I guess I'd maybe start with being away from your family. Take them with you is what I suggest. I know that's not always possible, but I just, as I've mentioned before, I just think you can always find a way. And why should you be separated from your family? I mean, I really believe that I can't really get on with my practice and be away without them, so I just take them with you. I mean, I know funding can be an issue, but just all I can recommend is just to try and apply. And is there anything of specifically funding for artist parents? I don't know if there really is.
I think the issue is though that it's all very well to take your family with you, but unless there's the support structure there, you know, like the fact that when I went to Santa Fe, they actually had this amazing summer camp for the kids, you know, and like, I don't know, there's so many incredible residencies, and a lot of them are for young single artists, which, you know, of course that's really important, but it shouldn't be the dominating theme. So I don't really know how we change that. I mean, apart from petitioning people to, you know, be more inclusive for all kinds of people.
Is it worth just quickly finding out?
Yeah.
Can I ask a few questions? Which is, so put your hands up if you've ever done a residency. Oh, nice one, excellent. And who hasn't done it but is trying to at the moment, or thinking of it? Thinking of it. Excellent. And does anyone have family who's already done a residency and that's been a problem? Well, not a problem, but a difficulty in bringing them. You have, yeah. Do you want to say what you did? Or shout, whichever.
Oh yeah.
Haven't, strictly speaking, I don't think I would call it a residency, but while I was at college, I went abroad a couple of times, and once was to the Istanbul biennial, and I had to leave my son. I'm a single parent. I had to leave him with other family members back here in the UK to be able to go and do that, which is fine, but I really like what's been said about taking family. He's now 17, he was a lot younger then, and he has Asperger's, and so I kind of need him with me, or he needs me with him. So I'm just finding it very hard in terms of, you know, continuing my practice, if you like. I graduated in 2006, and yes, so I haven't taken my son with me as such, but I'd like to in future.
Okay, and you wanted to talk?
Yeah. My experience with Arts Council funding is I've been very successful with bids, and there is actually factored into the bids is access needs. Now that is very broad, and you know you can actually write things into that would support. I mean, I must admit I was the one that wrote that, being away from my family, because I spend the last month I've been away about 6 weeks. It's, you know, when you add up all the days, and I miss my family so much. But the cost that I incur with, to give you some example, every year I spend between £8,000 and £10,000 on hotels, because my costs are double, because I have to have someone with me to support me, and my wife is incredibly understanding, sometimes likes to get rid of me anyway, but you know, if I can do it, and I've been very, very fortunate in a lot of the things I do, that the funders, if you're very honest with them and say right from the start, these are my needs, they will try and sort of meet you halfway. And I've been so lucky in that a lot of things I've been able to do, my kids have come along, they're teenagers now, so they think I'm boring. But when they were younger, they were absolutely part of my practice. And I literally had my daughter sat on my knee saying, paint this, Dad, you know, do this, because that'd be fun, wouldn't it, if you, you know, if you did that. So, you know, but there are ways and means to do it. Funders, I mean, I've found the Arts Council absolutely amazing, absolutely amazing. And even when I've been turned down for a bid, they've said, literally, shut up, Jason, write this. you know, you need to put this down as part of the bid process, and we'll reconsider it. And I've always been successful, but it's just about being very specific about what your needs are, really. And it's no good after the event saying, well, I need this. Right from the start, be very clear about what your needs are, and there'll be ways and means. And there's bits and bobs of funding about, you know, to help as well.
Can I just ask, and I don't know if you know, but when I applied to the Santa Fe residency, I did get a grant, quite a big grant from the Arts Council, but I couldn't write down my children's flights. You know, I had to pay for my children's flights out of my fee. So I just wonder if, like, you know, you can go to the Arts Council, for instance, and I'm pretty sure I did at the time ask, and I think the answer was no.
Yeah.
So I think that's the tricky question, is in terms of I think it's brilliant access if you've got a disability.
I think I've been very fortunate because the rooms I've had to get have had to be big rooms, so it didn't cost, there wasn't any extra costs in getting someone else in, you know, me and the kids and my wife. So, but I've been able to, when there's been private commissions or the Qatar thing, it basically was what I needed to get there. Whatever I needed to get there, they would, because they wanted me there, and I was so lucky, you know. But British Council and an oil company. So, you know, because one of my needs was I have to lay down on the flight, and the only way they could do that was by paying for first class. So for about 4.5 hours of the flight, I was a champagne socialist. Reading The Socialist Worker, but yeah, it was. I learned to live with that though. It was good.
I just wanted to say as well that I'm going back to Tampere, and I've been funded by Arts Council England, so that is factoring in travel for my partner and for my child. But when I originally applied, when I went in 2014, it was a different project then, but you know, I didn't get it. So I guess I'm just trying to give you a bit of advice that if you do apply, you know, do factor in those costs for your partner or your child and the access costs, but also to hand it in well in advance, because often they'll come back and you need to relook at it again. So like 6 months in advance, you need to be putting that in just in case that comes back.
So do you put it in the access cost?
No, I put it as travel costs, just travel costs. But I think that needs to be discussed. The access costs should be wider and more involved, say for somebody who needs childcare, or so that's something that I'd like to look a bit more into.
Does anyone happen to know? So I mean, obviously that's something that the Arts Council. Well, as Jason says, they do have funds earmarked specifically for this kind of thing. So I suppose it's just a question of making the case properly, making sure that the rules get slightly tweaked so that this kind of thing can happen.
Yeah, for example, the 15,000 grants for arts funding, you can apply for an extra 2,500. And I'm specifically thinking about your son, because that extra 2,500 can cover many aspects of the performance or residency that deal with disability or your own disability needs. So it's that, but you just got to be very, very kind of specific, and if the funding might not also come from the same pot, so you go to other people. There's lots of really interesting residencies that are around at the moment where they will, you know, you can put some extra, some extra funding in to help as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say maybe we should be lobbying to Arts Council to ask about that and ask what their position is on people who need to travel with family or want to travel with family for these residencies.
Yeah, I think that's a no-brainer, isn't it? And probably that will come out in your research, won't it?
Yeah.
I wonder if, since there's a few people who've... Do you want to ask about families? Because we've got another question that's might...
It was around the general subject, but I was just wondering in terms of my sort of concept of a residency is within that idea of it being site-specific and you responding to the place. And wondering if there's anything that, if you are taking your family with you, there's something you can do that is family-focused within that place that you are responding to, in order to sort of try and make, to sort of prove the point as to why you're bringing the family with you, I guess. I don't know if you've done that. I know that your children went to the summer school, but was there anything within the artist residency that was then something that the children did together that formed part of that knowledge that stayed with the residency programme?
You mean for the people in Santa Fe, or?
Well, yeah, for the people at the arts centre there, and for the children who, if all the children came over and they were doing the summer school, is there any kind of sort of legacy that's from there that is about children? Do you see? I guess what I'm trying to say is that idea of if you're sort of lobbying to bring a sort of wider family with you.
Yeah.
What's the
the
relationship between the family and the residency that you're doing, other than obviously fulfilling your needs to be able to go and be an artist, but isn't there something else about that engagement?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually very... What was interesting was that because there were like 5 artists, all with their families, and it was the first time they'd ever done this, and we ate breakfast together, we helped each other out kind of thing. And I mean, the centre in Santa Fe is amazing. It's got a library, they've got support staff there all the time, but they've never had like this kind of feeling of like children, which are obviously quite chaotic, running around the place. I think it really changed for them what a residency was. And I can't say that, it's difficult, isn't it? I can't say that that experience specifically fed into the project, although obviously my kids were involved. But I think you get a really deep understanding of a place when you bring your kids, because you have to interact with the community in a lot of different ways. So obviously, just even taking part in the summer school was just very different. I don't know if that answers your question, Sam.
And also just to add to that, when I went, my son was only 6 months old, so he was just a little baby really, but just life experiences. So, he tried blueberries for the first time, we swam in the sea, so, we just had all these lovely moments together as a family. And also at the Art Centre, a family live upstairs in the building, so, we spent a lot of time with them and with her as well, the mum who was kind of taking a bit of time out from her artist practice, and she showed me some of her amazing video work that she did. But just sort of, having those conversations as well with someone who was kind of talking down her practice because she was a mum, but is a brilliant artist. So I don't know, just sort of having that contact and still valuing her as a mum and as an artist. And that couldn't have happened if we hadn't come into contact together, I guess, and the fact that we were a family there as well. So I don't know if that answers your question.
I wonder if we should just step back just for a moment, because there's one question there that's very interesting, which is, I've not been in a residency before. No, it's not a question, it's a statement, which is absolutely fair enough, but I guess that we could just do a little bit of ABC. I think that might be, would people find that helpful? So you obviously saw the 4 sources of information that Nicola flashed up on screen before, which are really good, and there are lots of residencies going on. I was looking at the Twitter stream for this morning, and 3 new residencies, as it happens, came gotten out, I don't know if they're totally new, in places, one in Nigeria, one in New York State, and one in Scarborough. So a multitude of possibilities there. But I thought there's a lot going on, and I think so. The first thing is considering whether it's right for your practice, and then where you might go, what it involves, and so on. But who wants to talk a bit more about that application process? That first application process.
Not necessarily about the application process, but in what I've done is often you create your own opportunities, and I think Nicola's kind of in the process of doing that with all this as well. Is, you know, if you've got a context that you are particularly interested in working in, why not initiate something yourself by approaching that context, that place, or an institution in that place, and research how you might make it happen off your own back, create your own residency somewhere.
I think
it's a little bit like what we did with the shed, I suppose.
One of the tweets that's come in is someone who says she's the first artist in residence at an orchestra. So that's interesting, and I think these things are starting to happen. People are starting to get it a bit more about the possibilities. So
I think it's interesting to look at, you know, kind of historically where artist residencies started, and the idea of artist residencies with the artist placement group in the late 60s and 70s, where, you know, artists were assigned placements within council departments or factories and so on. And it's, you know, I think, you know, what Sam said about the context is really important.
I mean, what would be your first thing that you would, what if somebody says to you, why do we need a residency at, you know, ABC Industries? What would you say to them?
Well, I just think that an artist can bring a new perspective to what's going on in a place, and you know, what artists do is look at and observe and comment and make meaning out of things that, you know, that context might not have considered before. So it can be so broad. I mean, I've curated residencies at Victoria Baths for many years, and every artist that comes in, you know, approaches it in a completely different way. And it was very good when, you know, Victoria Baths was, you know, really teetering on the edge of would it eventually close and get pulled down, or would it succeed, that artists were able to come in and articulate new possibilities or new ways of looking at what that building meant, and the place and what was happening to it.
Does anyone else want to just comment about how you would, if you like, explain the benefit of residencies to someone who doesn't know them? Any of you other guys on the panel?
I mentioned earlier on in my talk, I did a year-long Arts Council funded residency with Wakefield Trinity Wildcats Rugby League Club. It was really hard work because they wanted the funding, they wanted, and it was quite a substantial amount of funding as well for a year-long residency that involved lots of community engagement and commission pieces. But they didn't want the artist in residence. That was the issue. They didn't understand what it was, how it worked, and it was completely alien to them. So it was an uphill battle. But even within that kind of tension, there was, as an artist, there was lots of opportunities to make sort of interesting artwork, you know, and particularly as an artist who makes work about dysfunctional bodies that don't work, and it was really sort of fascinating sort of tension to be around kind of athletes, and talking about why residencies work. I remember vividly the scrum half, an Australian guy, coming to one of the exhibitions that was part of the residency, and having a long discussion with him about my artwork, and it was the most surreal experience because here was a guy that his vocabulary was about sport, about training, about all those kind of things, but he was engaging with me on a whole different level. And there's also opportunities as well to work with the community on a huge scale. Through the different residencies I've done over the past 5 years, I've worked with, I think it's approaching over 16,000 people, which is huge. And even on the Wakefield residency, it was 5,000 that I engaged with just in face-to-face making art with, which I'm incredibly proud of, given the fact that most of my checks bounced throughout the year when they were paying me. So it's an interesting year, that, yeah. So does anybody else want to add anything?
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to mention that, residencies aren't for everybody, and it's not, it might not suit everybody's practice, but I think, like what Sam touched on there, if you're interested in working site specifically, or, you're looking for a new challenge, or like working with different communities, I just think it's such a good experience. So if you haven't done it, I'd say try it and just see what you get from it, and then take it from there.
And would you mind saying what you think the commissioning body or the partner, the hosting partner, might want to hear from a potential artist in residence? What kind of things they might want to hear and might not want to hear?
Do you mean as in what they want from the artist?
Exactly, yes. But what kind of things you might tell them when you're applying?
I mean, for example, the Takahiti Research Residency, they wanted just for you to express some interest in the city. That could be as big or as small as you like. So it was a very open question. And just to know that, you are a professional artist, or that you are, making work, showing work. And that was it. It was very relaxed what I did, so it was quite open. But that's all they wanted to know for that.
Anyone else? Do you want to? No?
Yeah, so.
Just going back to what I said before, receiving applications at Victoria Baths for some of the residencies we did from 2004, 2006. It was about 4 different times. I think just what attracted me was people who were very kind of open in what they were planning to do. So not necessarily people who said, I know exactly what I'm going to do and this is exactly what it's going to end up as. That kind of shut it down for me as somebody looking. But it's very personal, isn't it, to whoever's curating or hosting or has devised a residency, what they want out of it. So for some residencies, they may want a lot of public interaction and workshops and educational stuff, and for some they may be looking to offer an opportunity that really helps you expand your practice. So yeah, I don't think there's a formula really.
I wonder if you want to move on to your third postcard. Is this, unless anybody has any sort of questions about the application process, about meeting people, about finding residencies. If anybody's got any more on that subject, we could talk about them now. But otherwise, why don't you do that?
Thanks. Yeah, you need to go. Okay, thanks, Helen. Thank you very much.
So this last postcard is talking about confidence. I think that's saying regarding mental illness.
There's a few about confidence.
Yeah, there's quite a few about confidence and maybe worrying about the application process, believing in yourself, believing that you can do it. I guess, I mean, I appear to be very confident when I apply for things, and at the beginning, I've got all these ideas, but then actually the nearer I get to doing residencies, I then start to get quite anxious and worried, just right kind of near the beginning of something. But I think that there's a part of that that's quite normal, I think. And so I just try and remind myself that it's natural not to feel overly confident about any project or residency that I'm going to take part in. I guess to try and keep a bit of confidence, just to have a plan of action of what you're actually going to do during your residency. Now that might change, that's fine, that happens quite a lot, but I think to have some sort of structure. So for me, whatever residency I've taken part in, I always write a blog, and I just very much write it like a diary in my own language, and that just helps me stay on track with what I'm doing. And I guess for me, you know, I do suffer a lot with anxiety sometimes, and my partner actually is a massive support in that regard. So, yeah, I definitely probably couldn't have done that residency without my husband when I went to Finland. And just to reach out if you are struggling, don't be scared to ask for help, because probably the person sitting next to you is also struggling a little bit. So it's okay to not know or feel completely confident, and just, yeah, ask for help if you need it.
Just on confidence regarding mental illness, again, going back to what Jason was saying about the disability access costs that you can build in. If you're applying for a residency or applying for a grant for a piece of work, if you do have any kind of mental health condition, and that counts as a disability issue, and you know, it might not be obvious what your needs are, and everybody who has a mental health issue will have a different need in terms of support. It might be getting across town, you need help and support to actually make journeys, or you need time out at different times. So really think about what you need to support that, you know, your mental illness in terms of doing a residency. If there's something that can help you to get through it, if that's having somebody else alongside you at certain times, then again, build that into costs.
How much would you make of that? Because people asked before about how much one is influenced by the presence of children or family. I wondered how much one's application for a residency might be influenced by the presence of other conditions, you know, so how much one would make of it is, I guess, the question in my mind, which is becoming clearer as you're talking. It seems that one should make as much of it as necessary in order to get one's needs met, but also in terms of the work, and not being prescriptive and having some flexibility within the plan. That's also comforting, because I guess rather than a question, this is more of a statement, I realise. So anyway, thank you for that. Yeah.
Do either of you guys want to talk about more generally about confidence as a
confidence, you just got to go for it, really. My first Arts Council bid was about 5 years ago, and I did not have a clue what I was doing. And bless them, they just held my hand and through the process and just kept sending it back until I got it right. And it really opened the doors, because it led on to, I think I'm on my sixth lot of funding in the last 5 years that supported residencies. And it's one thing is having a very clear kind of idea about what you want out of that residency. The other thing, which is absolutely vitally important, is partners. Looking for partners in that, so you can actually, because it changes slightly over the years, but the Arts Council want public engagement. They want the ways that you can prove that you're engaging with the public on in a big way. They want artistic excellence, you know, but one way I've found of sort of securing funding is by having really good partners, which might be you know, a well-established gallery or organisation, somewhere that hasn't had, like with me with the rugby club. Although I talk about it as a very difficult experience, you know what? It was brilliant. It was brilliant because I learned so many skills. You know, one was keeping your head above water when at the end of the month you haven't got money to pay the mortgage. You know, things like that. But it also really pushed my kind of artistic practice forward, and really, you know, sort of pushed me forward onto other things. So it's just about sort of keeping going, really. And if you get turned down by a funder, apply again. You know. They can only say no, and there's lots of really interesting residencies out there, and there's one that comes to mind that particularly sort of addresses mental health issues, disability, but you can be an able-bodied artist that's actually just dealing with those, and that's the Adam Reynolds residency, which is I think it's about £15,000 for 6 months to work in some really, amazing. I think they did a residency last year at Spike Island. So there's a real sort of it's a really lovely residency to sort of get you on your way really, and really support you. But there's lots of things like that, and it's just about putting yourself out, talking to people. Events like these, it's amazing how many times where you meet someone and it kind of leads on to something. It's not networking because that's nonsense, but it's about sort of showing people about what you're doing and what your practice is, and being confident about that.
My favourite quote on this is from Darwin, Charles Darwin, and he says, "Ignorance more frequently begets confidence than does knowledge." In other words, there's no real correlation between confidence and knowledge, and quite often it's the opposite. And and there was a question on here as well about introversion, and we actually somebody asked whether we could do an introverts photography group, which was a really interesting idea. We haven't really taken it much further, but it is this thing that actually, you need sort of inner confidence, which is just the feel that actually your work is reasonably good, and if people are saying, your work is pretty good, that's kind of all you need really to get going and apply for something. And obviously, most artists are trialing things, testing things left, right and centre, and R&D, I suppose it would be called in industry, but artists do that as well. They test a lot of stuff out in a lot of different ways, and as things get more appreciated and more, or people want to see more of it, that's a good indication. But I mean, it's that thing that there's no real correlation between confidence and quality. So that is, go for it, as Jason says.
I think as well, with the Arts Council, you can actually look at online at the reports of residencies that have taken place, and you can see actual, what's worked and what hasn't worked, which I found really helpful, when I've been writing my own bids. And, it's always worth having a look what bids have worked already, what projects have worked, and why they work really, because that's really useful.
We've got 10 minutes, and I would like to talk about money, because that's something we talked about a lot when we were preparing for this. Is that okay? Or
Yeah, no,
that's fine. I think it's good to talk about money. That's kind of part of the reason why I applied for my We Are Resident project, because, to be honest, I'm just sick of seeing unpaid opportunities out there, whether that be performing, exhibiting, residencies, and I just felt that if I don't create my own opportunity, I'm not going to be able to pay myself. And I've got a partner, I've got a son, I can't afford to work for free anymore. And you could say that might limit what I do, but I feel that it's made me more focused on just making things happen for me and for others, and to be paid for it. I feel at the moment, particularly in Manchester's sort of cultural agenda, is very much about graduates, which is great for maybe quite a lot of you in the room here. But even graduates still have to pay bills. May have children, may have a mortgage. So, we should be paying each other, and as artists, we should be supporting each other as well to pay other artists.
It's worth probably mentioning the Paying Artists campaign if people don't know about that. Does everyone know about the Paying Artists campaign? Yeah, and AN have some suggested fees and so on. If you apply to Arts Council, you're required to obviously to pay the artists for the work that they're doing, generally speaking, and at agreed rates, that's to say. Well, they're supposed to be union agreed rates, whatever they are, but they tend to be the AN minima if they're not in place. So all of that should happen, but still there are lots of ways that people don't pay.
Yeah, and also just to say that you don't always get paid for opportunities, but you get something else from it. So, as I mentioned, I went to Finland before and I wasn't funded. I got part funded for it, but I just thought, it was going to benefit my practice, so I just went anyway. But there are only so many times that you can do that, maybe in your life or your career. Sorry.
Question?
So it's just, I didn't understand where you can find those rates.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
on AN on their website. I'm not sure if you've got to be a member to access that, but maybe check with the Are you at the University of Salford?
No.
No. I'm
They
trying to
used,
think.
they used to publish those bits outside their membership wall.
It is
so,
published outside.
yeah,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah.
I'm sure if you just Google artist rates, you'll find something.
I mean, the Arts Council used to publish a rate, which was on the low side, but they don't anymore.
It's not gone up.
It's not. It never went up. It was like 150 quid for about 100 years, wasn't it? And I think it went up to 175, and then they dropped it. Controversy. Did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I was with the bids. The last 5 bids that I've done that have been successful. I've talking about partners. I've managed to fund 9 artists through the actual funding process. So through the residents, I've been able to support young artists in the area. Or it might be from a discipline that's completely left field to me in terms of. But it's been a really good opportunity to kind of support artistic activity in that particular area that I've been working. So there's those issues as well. When you write the bid, think about how you could possibly support. If you are going down that route with the Arts Council, think about how you can support those, or even through events like this, talking to artists who have got a track record with the Arts Council, and looking at possible partnerships that could work as a result of that meeting.
We've got a few more minutes for questions, so does anyone have any questions? And Dave, I might just bring you in a little bit about the pay side, if there's anything you want to add on that, or on what it's doing for your practice as well. Do you want to say a little bit about that, how it benefits your practice?
Having never really done paid work so far, I can't really say, can I? Because it's never really. But yeah, it'd be nice to get paid to do what we do.
Yeah.
That's the end thing. Is you want to get paid for it, but it's finding people that want to pay you at the end of the day.
So the free economy, if you can call it that, the free arts economy. I mean, I guess it's huge. But
it is. It's a benefit when you're starting out.
Yeah.
Because obviously no one's going to pay you because you've not done anything. So to get a resume going, then yeah, that's helpful. But at the end of the day, at some point you've got to say no more. I've got to get paid now.
Any more final questions in the last few minutes? In which case, what I might do is ask you all just to say, maybe sum up a little bit about your kind of top tips, your main thought, what you would say to another artist who is thinking of residency. I mean, in a sense, we've all said, go for it, do it, it's good for your practice and so on. There are a lot more difficult questions to consider, in how we survive, family access, and so on. But I don't know if you want to sum up with a few kind of. Everyone's gone.
Feeling under pressure now. My mind's going blank. The anxiety's kicking in.
I think that residencies abroad sound great. I'd love to do one, but I have caring responsibilities, not of children but of an elderly parent with Alzheimer's. So that kind of makes it a bit more tricky. But what I was also going to say is the local is global. I think is a bit of a catchphrase. So yeah, let's go global. Look, around you where you are now. Most of my work has been within a sort of 2-mile radius of my house, and I think that's cool.
Yeah, I mean,
But if anybody's offering me a residency in
we were
Peru or something like
we had a talk last night from a speaker, and she had gone to the Florence Trust. Do people know that? I mean, it is London, but it's a church, and they divide it up into 12, and you just basically get the keys for a year. And that sounds quite amazing, actually. You get a pretty big space with lots of other great stuff going on around you. And well done to the Florence Trust for getting it rolling. It's a permanent programme. And Metal in Liverpool, I think, is a little bit like that, where people come and go, don't they? Whereas some of the Santa Fe, I would imagine, I've seen also, I don't know if it still exists, there was a lovely residency place in California where they were sort of purpose-built houses with great big windows and grand pianos and the rest of it, and you basically got given it for as long as you wanted. I mean, unbelievable. Those kind of places, are they disappearing? Are they fictitious, or do people still want that sort of, you know, real kind of get on your own, make great work?
An interesting thing to look at, I don't know if it's on Nicola's contacts, is the Triangle Arts Trust, because they host residencies within artist studios all over the world, and it's a kind of like an informal, organic network of opportunities.
So approach people like that if possible, and just sort of maybe try and set up a meeting. Will this idea work in a residency? Perhaps more than just a sort of, you know, a very kind of dry application. Is actually just, as everyone has said, try and talk to people about whether the idea will work. So, Jason.
I think you talk about the key to success or whatever that is. You know, the Grayson Perry talks about it's really simple. You work really, really hard and you make art. And I know that it's easier said than done, but that is the thing really. You've got to keep making art. You've got to keep you know, it's even when you've got the equivalent of, you know, writer's block, artist block, whatever. Just keeping producing work. Keep questioning yourself. Surround yourself by people who question you as well, and keep pushing you. You know, that are positive influences. And you know, keep focused, because I graduated in 1992, and I tried this sort of studio system, and I failed because I wasn't committed. I didn't work hard enough, basically, and I thought going into lecturing was the best option for me, and I needed to grow up really, and it took me to get my 40s. And being, you know, ill, it took me all that time to grow up really, and have the kind of maturity to deal with the knockbacks, because it is bloody hard. You know, when I went down yesterday for an interview for a post at the BFI yesterday, and I was in a room full of 6 people, and the interview was in front of these 6 other candidates, and you've got to have broad shoulders and think, well, you know, if I don't get this, fair dues. I'll give you a really quick example. I got asked, somebody actually got in touch with me and said, there's a residency in Australia, Jason, how do you fancy going to Australia? Brilliant. And I thought, oh, they've asked me to apply, there must be a sign, they must really want me. I didn't get it. And it's really good to get a knockback, but it's about getting up, you know, and getting on with it, and thinking about what the next piece of work is, and the next project.
Dave, is there anything you want to finish off with, a final comment that you would?
I think the only thing I've learned from this lot is don't give up, keep trying, and don't say you can't, because you can. So where there's a will, there's a way, I suppose.
Great. And Nicola, do you want to finish off? Haven't given you a top tip? I think you kind of have.
I haven't, but I just want to say anyway, thanks for coming today. It's really great to see lots of new faces, and it's just really, lots of you have written down comments, so it's obviously a hot topic, and it's just been really great to just discuss those sort of barriers, and just, I guess my top tip is just to not let barriers get in your way, and you know, there will always be a way. I mean, some people are just doing things online. Some people don't need a physical space to make work. You know, you can make things in so many different ways now, and so many different media. So you can create your own residency, is what I'm trying to say, if that's for you. There's an artist called Lenka Clayton. I don't know if people have heard of her. And she's done a residency, and it's basically a website. And that's how she started, and she's doing very well at the moment. So yeah, that's it. Thanks for coming.
And thank you very much. Well, thank you everyone for coming. I found that actually, that's given me so many ideas, my God. And lots of people I'm going to just collar this afternoon and say, why aren't you doing a residency or applying? But anyway, that's my point. But massive thanks to you all, to Salford University for hosting, to all the lovely speakers. It's been so interesting and insightful. And particular thanks to you for arranging this, and keep up the conversation. So thank you very much, everyone.